Hello, I'm Sean Sands from Gamers with Jobs on the Gamers with Jobs conference call, and I'm going to play Factorio for you today. The main reason I'm playing this game is if you've listened to the show, you know, one, this is sort of my new obsession, and two, I'm having a hard time explaining why. So I thought maybe just running through the game a bit and giving you a look at what about it is got my attention. Um, might help explain it, or maybe not. But the basic conceit of it is, and you can scroll out quite a bit, is that you are alone, stranded, crash landed on a planet, and your job is to build a factory strong enough, advanced enough, big enough that you can build a rocket to get off this rock. And you start with nothing but a gun and some ammunition, a stone furnace, and a burner mining drill. There's really not a lot of point in going through the story. It's not there, and it's just an excuse to build an elaborate factory. So I'll just go through sort of the beginning steps here and what I'm looking at. I've gone through a couple of maps. Each map is randomly generated, sort of infinite and massive, and while you start by seeing this, I mean, the world itself is incredibly huge. Have a nice patch of resources here. Got iron, coal. Coal is your sort of fuel along with wood, stone, iron, and over here some copper is helpful for building stuff. And down here we have an alien nest, which means that we're going to have to kind of be conscious as we start to build stuff of attacks. So yeah. So first thing I generally like to do is just get some iron going. And you can iron, you can iron, you can mine iron yourself. You have a whole crafting sort of environment here, pressing the E key. Not a lot of stuff to build right off the bat, but you also have a bunch of research you can do that leads to a much more robust system. So I'm going to build an axe. You can see here that it takes 0.5 seconds to build, I guess that is. Needs 2 iron sticks and 3 iron plates. You can actually see the total raw resources needed at the bottom. So if you have nothing except some time and your basic resources, it's going to craft things for you to get to that point. So like iron sticks cost 1 iron plate. I start with 8 iron plate in my inventory, but since I built that, that's already used it up. So I'm going to just craft up. Ugh, it's a little loud. Hang on. So I laid down the burner drill over there and the stone furnace, but as you can see, they're flashing red, which means neither of them have any fuel. So job one is just to get some fuel. And you can just sit here, I mean, like, super boring. The whole point is to get to a place where you never have to do this again, where you never have to sit there and hold the button down. And just mine on your own. And while you have to do that for the first batch, you want to get away from that. So this miner drill you can see is running now. It's mining an iron ore with each sort of drag of this thing, and it's using up the fuel I put in there. Make sure there's more. So each time the red line goes down, it'll use up 1 fuel, go back down again. I have it set up, you see this little arrow here, so things feed into one another, and this is feeding directly into here, which means that every time this churns out an iron ore, it kicks it straight into here automatically, and this smelts it down to these iron plates that I need. Also, nighttime is coming. This game is notoriously dark. I'll try and keep sort of zoomed in close. So I happen to know that what I need to do now is mine up some stone. I'm going to mine up 10 of these. The reason for that is I'm going to want to take these iron plates and I want to build another one of those cool burner mining drills. And you can see here it needs iron gears and stone furnace and iron plates, but ultimately what it needs at the bottom of that little list there you can see is 5 stone and 9 plates. So we're going to get to that. Well, we're going to get a little over that because I want both a burner drill and another one of those cool, cool little, what do you call it? Actually, I don't. Okay, so I want this Next job, number 2, is to start getting some... Yeah. You just click the thing, right? When you have that crafting system over, you just click the thing you want. And if you can build it, you will be able to build it. If you don't, you'll be able to see on here, oh, I don't have enough iron. So we'll get a bunch more iron out of here, and I'm going to build 2 mining drills this time. And the reason for that is I want to automate, to some degree, my fuel production. And I do that by placing 2 of these drills. I'm going to mine exactly 1. This is a little trick I found from somebody else, so I can't take credit for it. So you notice these both still have those little arrows that send one thing back into another. I have them feeding each other. So as this one chews up its coal, it kicks it right into this one, which uses it as fuel, and back and forth. And it happens, as you can see, it gets more fuel than it uses. So, physics, nice try. But I can just sort of click that out and use that as a source of fuel now. And even though that one was briefly out of power, it just works. And that's good because it turns out I need more fuel. So we're going to go down here and we're going to get some more stone. And we're going to do this cycle a little bit for just a minute to just get things kicking underway. Another maybe 10 of these so we can start accelerating our iron production. And the point of what we're trying to do here is we're trying to reach this sort of first milestone, which is to get electricity and get an actual factory going. So I'm going to build another one of these mining drills, another one of these stone furnaces. I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. I'm going to essentially double our iron output, and I'm going to take this, and it's going to do exactly like this one is doing. Except now, I have 20 iron here, and now I'll have this here. And you can open these and just pull stuff out. What I'm doing is a little shortcut of control, left clicking, and just pull stuff straight out. So we're going to do that a little bit more. Here's my stone, because we want to start getting stone up and running now. We want to stop having to, hit things on the ground like an idiot. Just standing here chopping stones out of the ground. Like that's not the point of this. I'm going to get a little bit of wood too, because we're going to do something a little bit different here. We're going to build one of those miner drills. Get this stupid tree out of the way. There is something, you don't want to think too much about the fact that ultimately this game is one where you go into a pristine natural environment and you just create a smoldering factory. Like don't dwell on that too much, because it's funny, like it shouldn't bother me because it's a pure video game, but there is something very sort of imperial and colonial about this game, where you crash land and the whole point is to build up this industrial nightmare. So we're not going to spend a lot of time thinking about that. So as you can see here, this time I did something different. Instead of burning, by the way, one thing you just got to get past, graphically, it's not a perfect game. It's not a beautiful game. You get up close, it's real muddy. You pull way back and it's all right, but this is not a game that you're going to spend a lot of time just showing to your friends to show off your graphics card. It's not that kind of deal. So now I'm not going to be chopping up stone anymore. I've got a stone source. I've got an iron source. Nope, not iron ore. Iron plates. And I've got a fuel source. So I've taken these things that I had to do very manually right at the start, and now I've automated them to the point where, look, I can build several more of these. Why? Well, to keep expanding. I mean, the whole point, in fact, we're going to start up here now in this little copper mine that's kind of trapped among the trees. You gotta clear out some space here. And we're going to get some copper production going. I need stone furnace, which means I need stone, which means I need to go back down here. Because I need one there and one up there. I can just control left click on that. Now I can build 2 stone furnaces. One here. Go ahead and pull some fuel out of here to feed that system. And do the same thing up here. There we go. All right, so what do we need to do? There's a couple of things we're trying to do now. One, like I said, is we want to get to the point where we can build this sort of steam engine electricity generator. The other thing we want to do is to be able to build a lab. And as you can see, a lab's got a lot going on. You need electronic circuits, iron gears, but ultimately raw material, you need 36 iron and 15 copper. And we're getting pretty good on the iron front. In fact, I'm going to build 2 more of these to expand my fuel making capacity by doing this. Also, one of the cool things I like about this game, you can rotate things that have already been placed. So these no longer sort of fuel each other. These 2 fuel this, but there's no way to kind of get these 2 in the mix unless you can rotate them, which it turns out you can. And so now you can see there's sort of an arrow circle going on here. So this one's feeding this one, which is feeding this one, which is feeding this one, which is feeding that one. So now we've essentially doubled our coal production. Let's go ahead and get one more iron system working. And we're out of... Plop that in there. There. And we're up to now 140 iron plate, just like that. And remember, it was, what, 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago that we had to do this one. And now we've got 141 iron, which is great. It just feels good. It feels productive. You know, sure, at the expense of, you know, some trees and stuff. Like I get the whole, I play this game and so I have kids. And one of the books my kids love is The Lorax. And every time I read that book, I absolutely love that book. But the protagonist is clearly the Lorax, who's, you know, speaking for the trees and the swarming swans and, you know, the environment. And there's this sort of malevolent force called the Onceler, who at the very beginning just comes out and he finds one tree, this truffle tree, and he's just going to take one and, like, you know, 3 pages later, he's got this monster factory that's just spewing out this awfulness. And I mean, they call it Factorio. This game could be called Onceler Simulator, because that's really kind of who you are in an awful way. You know, and you don't want to think too much on it, because it really is just, you know, it's just a simulation game. This is ultimately a logistics game, where the point is to kind of, not paying any attention here. The point is to just kind of be able to build this puzzle in this environment. But at the same time, I do want to kind of acknowledge and appreciate the fact that you're, you know, as you get you know, to the mid game, these resources will be gone and replaced with, you know, conveyor belts and factories that are kicking things into other things. And that, I mean, the whole point is to automate, and you really will be sort of fending off this encroachment from, you know, the native species. So, yeah, it is what it is. But let's move on. Instead of dwelling on that, why don't we build some electricity? Because I think we're to that point. So this is the very basic beginning of the game, right? You get to this point, but what you really want to do is to be able to automate your electric mining drills and be able to kick things, actually have things be feeding other things so that you're doing even less and less of this sort of going back and forth and having to, click machines to get the right resources out of those machines. You want to actually to reach the point where those resources are extracted automatically and sent automatically to the place where you need them. So let's see how that looks. We're going to now automate. Yeah, that ought to be enough. We're going to build 10 steam engines. So we're building, let's see, how many boilers do we have? I want about 10, 12 boilers. Let's see, we got... Yeah, 13 boilers is good. That's real good. And we're also going to need some transport belts now. Reaching the next phase of the game. So the way steam works, steam energy works exactly like you think it works. You take water and you burn some fuel and you convert it into energy. Pull everything up there, get all our iron out of there, and so that's exactly what we're going to do. We want some ground to pipe. So what we're going to do is pull water from here, feed it into a boiler, into a series of boilers that will feed a steam engine, and then we'll attach some power to it, and then all of a sudden we'll be immediately in sort of a different phase of the game. Let's see. Yeah, we're waiting on that to build. So let's assume we're going to build it here. We will put down... If you have multiples of things and you just sit there and hold, you can actually drag them in a line. So we have room. Okay, so those are our boilers. Now we want to attach the actual steam engines to them. All right, and we're going to have to be cautious of this alien nest down here. We'll need to be looking to tech up in the near future so that we can defend our base if we need to. Oh, it was one off. Let's just build one pipe. No big deal. So we have essentially a offshore pump that's pumping water through this iron system that will ultimately feed all these. And you can see that they have, if you look over on the right hand side, you can see that each of these boilers have water in them, but they have no source of power. So we're going to change some stuff up a little bit here. We're going to actually build some electric mining drills. And we're also going to need some electric poles. So we have fuel here, and this fuel can go into these boilers and be used to burn the water, essentially boil the water to run these steam engines. And the way we're going to do that is by automating that system. So we also need some inserters here. Again, the game gets pretty dark. Once we have electricity, we'll actually be able to build some lights, which will help with that issue. So we're going to... Yeah, we'll need some more copper. So we're at a point where the problem is that we can build stuff that runs very effectively and is self-sustaining, but it needs electricity to run it. But we need those things to get the electricity. So it's a little bit of a standoff, and you kind of have to manually push through this phase, but it's not that bad. So these are our new mining systems. So we had these burner mining drills, which we'll keep running for a little bit, but these are significantly stronger. And you can see that little green sort of shadow around them shows you how far out. So they'll be mining that everything within that space. But as you can see, they don't have any power. So we're going to need to get the power turned on and then from there, we'll need to be able to sort of sit. Once we have a power like just kickstarting a little bit, it'll be able to be self-sustained. But what we want to do is run this track right like this, and around and down. And we'll need a little bit more track there. The reason we want to do that is we're going to actually have, these are what's called inserters. So these inserters essentially grab one thing from one place and put it to the place next to it in the direction of the arrow. So pull from this side into that side. And we're going to have them pull from whatever comes down this conveyor belt. And what's going to come down that conveyor belt is the coal that we will need to be able to run our steam engine. So we're just going to hook it all up here real quick. So these power lines will take the energy coming off the steam engines and power everything along that line, including our what do you call them? Our inserters. I need a couple more of those poles. So we're just going to set that up real quick here. Okay, here we go. So we have everything set up now. The steam engines, once they're activated, will power both the inserters as well as the boilers, or the inserters, which will feed the coal into the boilers, which will help power the steam engines, which also power our mining system, which flows this way. Problem is, of course, we don't have anything going, but we can kickstart it. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take our coal and we're going to just sort of seed the system. So we're going to put a little bit into these boilers here to power them up. Now those boilers, that's enough. You can see the boilers are actually working and they are feeding the steam engines, which is producing power, which is running our mining system, which is now feeding the coal along this line. And you can watch, once they get particularly like this one, the inserters will take that and automatically power up the rest of the boilers. So it becomes sort of a self-sustaining system, which is nice, which is just super satisfying. Like, now I have this whole system that just feeds itself. It creates, it boils the water to create the steam that powers the mining drills, that sends the raw materials that go into the boilers to boil the water to put the steam to down and down and down. This is the fundamental idea of this entire game, is to create systems, ever increasingly complex systems like this, which is intensely satisfying. And to do that, you have to go down this whole tech tree. Now, I'm not starting a full sort of series here. This is the basics. I do want to show you what it looks like a little further down that line. So this is a game I've been working on for a while. I can show you where I started, but you can see what the factory ultimately looks like. And every sort of iteration of this has been expanding from one point. I began the game, just like I began that last game, basically right over here. And you can see I'm still doing essentially the same thing, which is mining. Well, it's dark. I ran out of power, but I need to upgrade my power system, which is the sort of thing you run into late in the game. I essentially ran this in exactly doing the same thing, moving the materials into a system. Now, you remember we had that, we were pulling had those burner drills and hooked right up on their own to these, what do you call them? What do you call them? Yeah, stone furnaces. This is ultimately the same thing, just kind of much larger and automated. So these belts are feeding this into these systems, which are kicking out those stone plates. But then it just takes it sort of down to the next level, which is that these plates are being fed from multiple locations. I'll show you in a minute. In fact, I have a whole separate area, and then being fed into this much larger bus, which is going down the same process, right? It's automating all these different things that you can build, to the point where, like, the research is all automated down here. I have an entire network of sort of robots that services these different things. It sends raw materials where they're needed, picks the results up, and sends them back through the system as they're required. And the world, like I said, gets much bigger. And this is still mid game at best. Ignore the warning signs. The aliens still want me off their planet. And the game, I realize you look at something like this without the context for it, and it just looks like a mishmash of sort of network and circuits. But as you slowly expand, it becomes very second nature. You become so familiar with your own factory and how you've laid it out that it's all very logical. And you get to the point where this is sort of the main factory, but as you proceed through the game, you'll actually kind of build expansion, and like here is, can I get it without the, yeah. So I have this sort of automatically running train system, which goes to this whole second outpost where I have a whole different sort of setup that is bringing this iron in and copper in, and it transports it automatic. Now I'm going to do it manually this time, but it's set up to do it automatically. But nope, I can't even unless I pause it. So you can see it has, you set up train schedules, and every 30 seconds this thing will load up its its cargo wagons, and we're going to let it do it itself. Yep, that's automated. I'm not touching a thing. This is completely automated. So it took all those raw materials, and then it runs them up here, and it kicks them into these, kicks them out and kicks them into sort of the main system. Yeah. You have to be kind of into this stuff, because this is ultimately a puzzle game. Getting things moving, and ignore this, I was in the middle of expanding. I was shifting to electric furnaces instead of these old stone furnaces. The magic of the game is not necessarily in just fighting the monsters or necessarily building everything, but in creating a system that works together. Right? There's something intensely satisfying to me to know that material that came through on that train becomes this iron that travels through the system, and maybe it goes down here and it becomes, I have an automatic system creating transport belt for me, or in this case, maybe this piece of iron goes into this assembling machine, which creates the circuit I need, which comes up here along this system, and then those circuits come up here, and they get mixed with this, and they become even more complex circuits, these much more advanced red circuits, and these red circuits come back down here, and you can marry them up with, with steel and batteries and these advanced inserters for this kind of hyper advanced like science material, or it goes into this into the logistics system. And the logistics system takes that, and then later it feeds it over into here, which is actually creating robots. So the logistics system is sort of serving itself. The logistics system is, these series of robots. I'll give you an example. So I'm set up to make sure that no matter what, I always have 100 transport belt in my inventory. Let's say I take, let's say I dump the transport belt I have right now. Stop it. I'll just put it in. Nope, I won't do that. put it in this chest right here for no reason at all. So my robots are like, no, 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 no. You need 100 transport belts at all time. Thank you, robots. Good job, robots. So they will go get it and bring it to me. And that's what these circuits end up doing. These circuits I was showing you earlier. Yep, see, he's taking that circuit to this box because this box needs to have a certain amount of circuits at all time. And if it doesn't, my robots automatically bring that. But guess what those circuits are building? More robots. More robots. They're building more robots. So they're kind of self-sustaining at this point. And eventually I will have, you know, an entire massive army of robots at my disposal. To the point where even here, like, I'm no longer requiring to build, you know, I want more of these, what do you call them? Fast inserters. And like I said, my logistics system has it. Yeah, you can see I'm pretty far here. We'll just upgrade our laser turrets. You know, I want these fast inserters. I want to have 50 of them at all time. And where are your plate here? Do I not? Oh yeah. What am I thinking? So I have it set up so the logistics system actually, you know, actually creates these things. And there's always some in here. So if I need more, let's say, no, I don't want 50. Now I want 100 of these things at all times. Then bam, they'll go get them and they'll bring them to me. So, I mean, if that's a thing, and not only will they bring them to me, they'll actually send the materials over here so that the system will build them. So they are actually bringing the raw materials. Instead of, you remember earlier, it was like me chopping it wood or whatever, and then as it progressed, it was sort of creating some systems, you know, with belts and stuff got pulled off the belts. Well, now it's to this point, which is interesting because this is a mechanic that doesn't even show up in the game till you've been playing it for 10 or 15 hours, and it's a whole different way of approaching the creation of the materials you need. So that's a look at Factorio. I still don't think I've managed to fully explain why I like this game or what's appealing about it, but there's an intense satisfaction with sort of creating this automated system that sort of self-sustains itself and eventually self-sustains you, and making it very organized is because it wants to constantly at every turn become less and less organized. It is the system is ever edging towards chaos. It wants to break down in many ways because the more strain, the more stress you put on it, the more raw materials you sort of try to push through the system. Look over here. Like there's an entire sort of you know, oil system in there where I'm, you know, pulling, rather than that ore out of the ground, you know, specifically pulling crude oil directly out of the ground and then mixing it into all these different things like, you know, heavy oils and light oils and, you know, what do you call this, sulfuric acid and all these different things. It becomes very complicated. The system wants to break down, and being able to keep it up and running and manage it so that you're able to fend off the alien threat, and I guess I'm the alien threat in this game, at the same time you're creating all the things you need to ultimately build toward, you know, getting that rocket, getting off the planet. I find it intensely satisfying. Anyway, Factorio, it's good. Like, even if you're looking at this and you're thinking, I should like this and I don't understand it yet, there's a demo out there. You can try it, I believe, for free and just kind of get a flavor for it. I recommend it, but I also struggle with it in its own way. So, anyway, that's Factorio. I'm Sean Sands from Gamers with Jobs at gamerswithjobs.com. We'll see you next time.